So this one's quite interesting. Obviously, we're waiting eagerly for the Project Kennan handheld collaboration between Asus and Xbox. And equally, we're looking forward to the Asus ROG Ally 2. And this week, there were leaks that seemingly show both of them. And what can I say? It looks like an Asus ROG Ally with a kind of handle arrangement added on it. There's been a number of follow-ups to that with some interesting information. I really like the Project Kennan black handheld there that's covered in fingerprints in this link. Like a proper fingerprint magnet. Probably a pre-production unit, but who knows. And it's got that little X button on it. It does appear to be the Xbox collaboration. Oliver, what do you make of all of this?
Oh, I think on a hardware level, these look really compelling. And a lot of that reason is because of a very controversial feature in these handhelds, which is the handles. Because I quite like them, even if they look silly. I actually put handles on, or handle-like grips on all my portables, including my Nintendo Switch, including my ROG Ally, that don't already have handles or handle-like surfaces. Like the Steam Deck already has enough of handles for me, basically. But everything else I put handles on. Because realistically, we're talking about these big handheld devices, 7-8-inch screens, big analog sticks. They're not pocketable devices, and you might as well just make them as comfortable as possible, in my opinion. They're going in bags, they're going in suitcases, maybe at a stretch they're going in like a big coat pocket. They're not going. They're not going in a jeans
huge
pocket.
Coat pocket.
These things maybe. Maybe the inner pocket of one of my coats actually does fit a Switch. It does fit a Switch, but not very many of them.
One of those infinite pockets, Oliver? Is this?
Yeah,
an endless pocket. It's not like the PSP days, even, or the PS Vita days, even, where you could kind of fit this quote unquote widescreen, big screen handheld at the time in like a jeans pocket, maybe, right? Like that's a different era of handheld design, and certainly relative to clamshell consoles like the Nintendo DS line, which did fit in pockets quite readily and were protected in that case. These are devices that are maximizing experience at the expense of portability, and I actually think that makes a lot of sense, because nowadays you go around in the world and basically everywhere you go, whether it's a coffee shop or a bus like a Greyhound or an airplane, a medium haul flight, long haul flight, you're getting a power outlet, right? Or you have one of very many battery banks that are available that can extend the life of your unit by quite a bit. I myself have like 3 70-watt-hour battery banks that I could take with me if need be. That, so I'm never without gaming, essentially, with my Switches and my ROG Ally. And also people are using these things at home all the time. So anyways, all that is to say that I think it's a very good decision to have the handles, even if they look silly. I think it's a great decision. Now there are obviously parts of it that are less exciting than the handles, at least to me. Windows, bit of a downer at the moment. I think you'd want to use SteamOS on this, maybe using SteamOS 3.8, the current release, or Bazzite. But Windows, Microsoft is obviously working on it, and I'm sure they'll improve things. I guess the question is, will they improve things by enough of a margin before these devices launch in, a few months, probably, right? Probably before October or November, whenever they launch. Will it be good enough relative to an alternative like Bazzite, presuming you can get Bazzite running on this? I don't know. That seems a little bit like a tough ask to me. The processor in these, at least the processor in the black one, which is the Xbox version, the other one has an Aerith Plus processor, that Aerith Plus processor, which is the Steam Deck APU presumably running with a higher clock rate, it looks like. But the black version has the Z2 Extreme, which is pretty good. It's like maybe 15%, 20% faster, probably, according to some benches of the same chip in laptops relative to a Z1 Extreme. That's probably in the ballpark of where it will be. I guess, you'd have some questions there, like, is that moment to moment, is that enough to induce someone to upgrade from a Steam Deck or a first generation ROG Ally or a ROG Ally X or any number of other Windows handhelds, the Lenovo Legion Go series? I'd probably consider it, not just for that upgrade, but for the upgrades in total. But I think most people probably wouldn't for a 20% upgrade in performance. Now we're talking about a scenario where this thing can probably run really a lot of current generation only titles in okay form. Not amazing form, certainly not as good as Series S, but probably decent enough form for a lot of titles. Like I'd be comfortable running Space Marine 2 on this thing. That'd probably be a good experience, for instance, that I wouldn't consider running on a Steam Deck, for instance. So yeah, it's just some thoughts there. I'm a big fan of the handles. Everything else, positive, but let's see more.
Yeah, a couple of notes from me. Kerry Golem from the Fox thinks it's the same 120 hertz VRR screen as the original Asus ROG Ally, which was slightly disappointing perhaps, but is there anything better out there at the moment? Is there an OLED
handheld
120 hertz VRR screen? I do think generally VRR probably trumps OLED if I had to choose between those
for a
two
handheld,
features
yeah.
for a handheld.
Oh, for handheld,
for a
yeah,
handheld.
100%. Yeah.
Other things that caught my eye, the memory, 8533 mega transfers per second is something which I don't think I had in the Strix Point little PC that I reviewed, which should give an idea of general GPU performance. So it could possibly go higher than what I've measured with Strix Point with that extra bandwidth. Not a huge amount, but who knows? So interested to see what it's capable of. But yes, I think that's going to be a very expensive processor that is still only producing iterative gen-on-gen upgrades. But we've had a couple of gens now. I do think it will be, I mean, you can already tell the difference very easily between a ROG Ally X and a Steam Deck, for example. So this should be like further widening the gap. Let's talk about the Aerith Plus. Aerith is the code name for the original Steam Deck's APU. 4-core Ryzen chip. It was capped to 15 watts. This goes up to 20 watts, where we should expect to see increased clock speeds, specifically on the GPU, hopefully. And of course, we're getting that same memory, the 8533 mega transfers per second RAM. So, again, we should be seeing like an iterative improvement with another iterative improvement from that bandwidth. So should be pretty good, but I don't see it being anywhere near as good as a ROG Ally. So I'm going to be interested to see where they land on that. And why they're doing it, I can only assume that the processor is going to be super, super cheap. That's all I can imagine on that. Looking forward to it. I really want to get my hands on Strix Halo, though, which is the big chip, the AI Max processor with 40 compute units. I mean, that's going to be ludicrously expensive. Could potentially go in a handheld, but that's going to be a while away, I think. Alex, any ideas, thoughts on this one?
Yeah, like Oliver, I'm skeptical about the Windows experience, seeing what Microsoft does
Right.
there. I've said that for a while now, so that's nothing new. I'm skeptical about, or curious, how they are going to market this exactly with the new Xbox branding for this new type of device. What exactly does it sit on store shelves, or does it also on store shelves? Yeah, like, is it only online? Like, Microsoft's pulling the Xbox out of, stores. It's reducing its presence in that area. Where does that fit into this all? I'm kind of curious about that. Like the branding, I almost feel like the Xbox button could be bigger. I don't know. When I look at the Xbox controller, it's pretty large, rounded button there. Almost like when I originally looked at this leaked screenshot, I was actually having trouble finding the Xbox branding part of it. Maybe I'm just not looking at it right. But I thought it would be more Xboxy looking, and it kind of isn't. So take that. I don't know, whatever you want to say about that. And I hope, just for Oliver's sake, that they do pack in some nice, really baggy jeans with really deep pockets, like some jorts or something. Xbox branded jorts that are sold with this that can fit it, because this is a pocket on the go machine.
Historically, if you look back at the press conference reveals of handhelds, the exec comes on stage and then they open their jacket, bring out the device. Right. What are they going to do for this? I can imagine like Mr. Asus is like maybe wearing a Neo-style Matrix trench coat.
Massive trench
get
coat.
this thing out.
Yeah. To me, like the biggest size you can get away with for that gag is like maybe a Switch Lite. But anything bigger and you start to really strain credulity there a little bit with your personal wardrobe choices.
Maybe a holster.
Yeah, like, oh my God, like an unbuttoned holster on the leg. That'd be great.
I think the other thing to point out about this Project Kennan thing, assuming it is, it obviously what we're looking at here isn't an Xbox handheld, it's an Asus handheld. with an X button on it. So in terms of branding, in terms of design, this is obviously an Asus machine, right? And maybe that is indicative of Microsoft's strategy, which is, to start with this concept of, hey, anything could be an Xbox, continue that concept rather. And here's Asus making a machine that we've had a hand in. It's not an Xbox, clearly, in terms of design language and stuff like that. It's an Asus machine, but that's okay, right? Yeah. Well, let's talk about some supporter questions on this one. Jiminy the 26th asks, "Hi!" ! If the Project Kennan handheld ends up being an Xbox product launching in 2025 or 26, would that potentially help or hurt the leaked Sony handheld expected around late 27, 28? These are two different things, right? This is an OEM collaboration. This isn't a Microsoft Xbox from the Xbox team, as far as I can tell. So it's not going to have any impact at all. Microsoft is making its own handheld, I assume, which would go head-to-head with the Sony one. This one, I think, is something quite different. It's, we should expect new GPU and CPU architectures for those devices in the future, with much more of a machine learning-based focus, if the rumors are true. This one from Rave_Damos. "Dear Digital Foundry sages, on the topic of Project Kennan, the Xbox handheld, you've often spoken of Series S performance in a handheld as unnecessary on a 7-inch screen, but hear me out. If one were to wield such a mystical device, both in the realm of portability and when docked to a home display, would not the allure of Series S horsepower at 1080p docked and 720p mobile be undeniable? Surely the balance between mobility and power deserves deeper consideration. What, dear gents, am I overlooking? Thanks, humble seeker of truth! ! Do you like the diction chosen there for that question? It's very, very, very impressive. I think ultimately Series S performance in a handheld is probably going to come from different things rather than miniaturizing the Series S design. That sort of level of performance will most likely be achieved via augmentations from machine learning, for example. So you'll get that sort of Series S level of overall performance, but it will be a more modern design with a more modern feature set, and ML is going to play a huge part in that. I don't think the focus is going to be on a machine that works like a Switch, in that you've got, a handheld mode and a docked mode. I'm sure you'll be able to hook it up to a TV if you want to, but, PlayStation, Microsoft, they're also looking to sell other consoles, right? Actual proper home consoles. Handhelds are a different thing there. But, well, what can I say? ROG Ally 2, again, looking forward to it.